Folks, welcome back to the Bobby Bo Show. Here's the moves. It starts with the Queen's Gambit, as always. But this time they play the dreaded Albin counter gambit. And this one sucks to play against. But here we go. Here's the moves you have to play. Knight to f3, and then you want to also get a3 so the bishop can't come down here and check your king. And if you like these commentary videos, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button just so I know. But this video is all about losing in the opening and then winning in the end game. This is a tricky opening to play against, and so far I've played okay moves, but I'm gonna make a mistake pretty soon and start losing. So here we go. They play bishop to g4. They always play this move. And here I should have played knight to d2, but I tried to develop my bishop. And that's a bit of a mistake because after bishop to e7, we trade bishops. And the position is even, but I did have a slight advantage if I played correctly. And now I'm just going to finish developing. Knight to d2. They want to get rid of this knight because it's the only defender of this pawn here. So knight to d2, so I can back it up. Or bring it over to b3 and attack the pawn. Now knight to g6, and they're attacking this pawn again. And this is the pawn that they gambited earlier, so if they get it back, it's just an even game, so not a big deal. But I would have had an advantage if I played correctly. And now h3 to kick the bishop away, which goes back. Trading it off would have been slightly better. But now g3. You usually want to fettuccine your bishop in the Albin counter gambit. There's a strong diagonal here. And now the pawn goes back to them. And I'll trade down a little bit, and it's still an even game. And get ready to castle here. Finishing development. Bishop to g2. They castle. I'll go to c2, develop my rook, queen to d7, and queen to b3, a bit of a mistake here, because they can play rook to e8, in line with my king here, and if I ever castle, they have this, so can't castle right now. Engine says that the best move is king to f1, and black has a slight advantage now. My king's not as safe as it could be, and if they play perfectly, they'll probably win more material here, but what did they do? They play rook to b8 to defend the pawn here, because I'm attacking it twice. And I don't really know what to do here, so I just start pushing this pawn down. I don't know. Feel like I'm going to run it down here for some reason, but it's just not a good idea. And because I don't know what to do, I just make a blunder. So here's how the game continues. They play a6, a5, but now they make a huge mistake with b5, completely forgetting about en passant. But I find en passant, Engine says it's a great move. And after the rook takes, I immediately follow it up with a terrible move. Queen to c2, big blunder, because now they can play bishop to f5, and after I block with my bishop and we trade bishops, I'm in a bit of trouble because my king is still in the center. They have a strong pawn that's coming down the board, and I make it even worse for myself by taking with the knight when I should have taken with the queen, because now they just push the pawn forward. And if I take the pawn, then I just get forked here. Queen defends the knight. So I can't take the pawn. And now rook to e8. Lining it up with my king here, and I'm in trouble. Engine says -4, but like I said, it's all about the endgame, guys. Lose the opening, win the endgame. Rook to d1, pinning the pawn to the queen, so the queen gets out of the way. Also lined up with my rook now, pinning the knight to the rook. Even more trouble. So the pawn move here to defend the knight and break the pin. But now they just take on e2, and now my king is directly in line with the rook, just 2 knights in the way. But after f5, now I have to move my knight. Or play rook to d5, attacking their knight with my queen and my rook. They'll take my knight, I take their knight. And here they play the second best move, when the best move would have been absolutely crushing. So what move would you play here? They played e captures f3, comes with check, and now I go king to f2. And now we trade pieces. And now, look at the situation. They're up a pawn. It's a queen and a rook versus a queen and a rook. This pawn's defended. This pawn is not defended. But if they take this pawn, it's checkmate in 1. So they can't take it. This pawn's in trouble, only defended by the queen here. So they went from a completely crushing game to basically an even endgame. When instead, they could have just taken the rook here. And then if I take back, they have queen captures c4 check. And now it's completely lost. They're either going to checkmate me or take my pawns. This rook is still in the corner. It's completely useless. And even though they're only up a pawn still, in this situation, it's completely winning for them because they're about to win even more. But back to how it went. We're in this situation, and now it's completely even. And they make it even worse for themselves by offering the queen trade, because now I have 2 connected pawns here, 2 connected pawns here. They have 3 pawn islands, and even though they're up a pawn, these pawns are disconnected. This pawn's all the way up here, these pawns are all the way back here. My pawns are stronger than theirs, even though they have an extra pawn. Completely even game so far, but we're going to claw out the victory here. Rook to d1, rook to b6 attacking my pawn. Have to defend it, and now this pawn's not defended. But they're going to attack here. Rook to c2 to defend, and now they bring their king up. I take back the pawn, and now we're even in material. Kings go to the middle. Now they're attacking my pawn on g. So I have to slide the rook over to defend it. They push their pawn up. I push h so that I can push this in the future without this being attacked. h6, g4, now the pawns aren't attacked anymore. And they offer the pawn trade. Now the position is starting to be pretty locked down, but I think we can make a little bit of progress. I put the rook on the f-file so that the king can't come over. And they attack my pawn. What I want to do is bring my king over here to start defending these pawns, but I can't do it right now, because if I do it right now, rook to b3 check, king to c2, rook to g3, and now I'm going to lose this pawn. But I can go for their pawn here, rook to f5, they take, I take, and now they have an outside passed pawn, but I have these two pawns. It's still a completely even game, but I didn't want to go this way because I felt like I could defend everything and still create some attacking pressure. So I bring the rook back over to defend, and now when they play rook to b3, I go back to defend the pawn. They go back up to b4 to attack the pawn, but now I can play king to d3 because they can't go over here now because the rook is defending. So now when they do the check, king to c2, they move the rook over, and now I can finally play b3, defending the pawn here, creating a solid pawn structure. Still an even game, but now my pawns are better than theirs, and the king's coming up to take this. So rook back to g1. I can't really do much here, but I think I might come over here and take this pawn. King up now, and here's where the crucial endgame knowledge comes into play. They're about to throw the game here. How? Well, let's see. I play king to b2, and what did they do? What move do you think loses the game right now? I'll give you a couple seconds. The move that loses the game on the spot is rook to g3. Do you see why? Do you know your endgames? Well, let's take a look. After we trade rooks, now I just push the pawn, and it's unstoppable. I'm going to promote before they do. They're going to take the pawn, and here's another crucial move. Only one winning move here. Which move is it? Do you take the pawn, or do you push the pawn? Which would you play? And if you take the pawn, you lose because now the king can get back. You can't promote. So you have to push the pawn, and now the king can't get there. So they take, and after we trade pawns, I promote first. But just one move before, and now it gets a little tricky because you have to stop them from promoting, but your king's all the way over here and your queen's all the way over here. So how do you get your king and your queen over there so that you can capture this pawn while it's defended by the king? Well, you start checking them. And I'm hoping that they allow me to take this pawn, and they go to h2, and I check them again. And once they play h3, now I can take this pawn because now I'm defending the square here. So got that out of the way. Unnecessary, but I wanted to get rid of that pawn if I could. And now it just takes a little bit of technique to win the game here. You have to know this. This is an important technique to win the game when you have a king and a queen versus a pawn and a king, and they're about to promote. You have to stop them from promoting and bring your king over. So here's how you do it. So they're going to go to h2 and get ready to promote. But now f2, and this pins the pawn to the king, so they have to make a king move. And h1 here to break the pin and get ready to promote. But now you just play h4 and check them. And now their only move is to step in front of the pawn, so they can't promote on their next move. So now you can bring the king over. So now you play one king move. And now you repeat that until the king gets there. So they step aside because they want to promote. I check them, they step away from the pawn instead of going in front of it. And now I get behind the pawn, they have to defend it. I play another check, they have to step in front of the pawn now, and now I make a king move. Repeat it again. And now you have to be careful one more time because you have one more chance to throw the game. And what move would you play here? The king is in front of the pawn, so they can't promote, and now we will bring the king over. Where will we go? And if you go to e2, that's stalemate, and the game is a draw. When you could have checkmated them if you just played king to e3. And now their only move is king to f1. And finally, queen to f2 is checkmate. Here's the moves it starts with. Playing d4 as usual, and they're playing the Indian game, knight to f6. I'm going to play c4, taking the center, getting ready to develop my pieces. And bring the knight out to c3. This is my typical opening. The bishop to g5 to pin the knight to the queen. How you guys like my chess raps? More coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button if you like the raps so I know. And they bring their bishop out to b4 to pin my knight to the king. And I like to trade these pawns here in the middle to open up the C file. I'm going to put my rook here, usually, and take advantage of that. And now I bring the other knight out to defend the bishop and get ready to castle maybe. And this is something I don't see usually, the queen coming up for some reason, instead of developing their other knight or bishop or castling. And I think it's because they want to break the pin, but not standard. The pin's not really a big deal. And I'm just going to keep going with my development. Get the light squared bishop out, so play pawn to e3. And here we go, the knight comes forward, double attacking my knight here and attacking my bishop. That's why he wanted to move the queen so that he could move the knight forward. But it's not really good. This is too early to be making all these moves without finishing your development or getting castled. I see what he wants to do. They want to trade knight for bishop though. But I'm going to go queen to c2. That's a developing move where I usually go with my queen and adds another defender here. And they trade knight for bishop. So now they have the bishop pair. I guess slight advantage, but this is not the grandmasters, so not a big deal, I don't think. And I'll just bring my knight back now. They played pawn to h and castled. Now they're castled, but they're still not developed on this side. They haven't developed their knight, bishop, or rook, and that's going to be huge. That's the key to this game. And that's why I play h4. I see how underdeveloped they are and how they move their queen up. They only have the queen and the bishop out, and I'm almost completely developed. So I'm just trying to attack the king now. And instead of developing now, they go for c5, thrusting forward with the pawn, trying to break open my center maybe and add some pressure to this knight. But it's just not very sound because they haven't developed. And I decide that trading it off is best here, which it is. And now I play the terrible move, knight to g5, currently threatening checkmate in 1. So they basically have to take here. And the reason I did this was because they're completely undeveloped on the left side here, and the queen is in a weird spot, so the queen can't actually come over to defend like it normally would be able to. So I'm just going to try to bust open this king, and the engine hates it, but it's actually going to work out here because it's a little bit tricky to play for them just because of how underdeveloped they are. And the best move, g6, to prevent me from coming up. And now I just try to go for an all-out attack on the king. So bishop to d3. I could take with the bishop here, and if the pawn takes back, the queen comes in, and this is checkmate. So they have to figure out how to defend against this. And the best move is king to g7, which would actually just be basically winning from here for them. But they decide to move the queen back to defend here, and that's actually going to be a big mistake. Still winning, but it's starting to turn around. And I bring the rook up to add another attacker here. And now they play king to g7, but it's not as good as it was before, but still pretty good. They're going to try to get the rook over here. Now that I'm down material, if they start trading and simplifying, that's really bad for me. So I'm starting to feel like I made a bad move at this point, and I'm realizing that my attack is not going to be as good as I thought it might be. But I castle, maybe get my other rook involved, and to free up this knight, because the knight is no longer pinned to the king like it has been the entire game. And that's crucial because now rook to h8 is a big blunder. And I didn't realize it was going to be a blunder until they made the move. And then I saw the brilliant knight captures d5. But that's not what I played. I actually played knight to b5, attacking the queen. But it's still winning because if I take on d5 and the queen takes, now I can play bishop to e4, attacking the queen with the rook and the bishop. And when the queen moves out of the way, best square is e6. Now I take the rook, and after they take back, we come down here, check with the rook, and we're attacking the bishop twice. King has to go to g7, and then we take the bishop. And now they're up +1, but you're absolutely crushing the position because this knight is pinned to the rook. They can't develop. Two of their pieces are just useless here. All 3 of your pieces are involved in the game, and pretty soon you're going to be up in material. So, but instead of that, I played knight to b5, and this is still winning, attacking the queen now, and they're trying to trade queens off. Like I said, if they simplify, they're up material, and they can just easily win, but not anymore because of their lack of development. Huge move, knight to c7, and after we trade queens, their rook is trapped. There's no way to stop me from taking this rook. They finally developed their bishop, but I'm just going to trade the rooks off because after I take their rook, now I'm +3 in material, and now I'm the one that wants to simplify, trade pieces, and win the game. So here we go. My knight is kind of stuck in this corner for now, but they can't really take it. And I'm going to double up on this pawn in the middle. They can't add any more defenders right now, so they're going to have to try to counterattack. And bishop to e7 attacks my pawn on g5, and I'll defend it with f4. And now the bishop goes to attack my e3 pawn. My king moves up to defend it, but now they hit me with some checks. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because I want to defend this pawn with my king so that my rook and my bishop can attack here. But I can't go here because it's blocked by the bishop, and I can't go here because of this fork or x-ray, whatever it's called. I would lose my rook to the bishop, which I don't know, might be still winning. It's like drawn, but +1 for me, basically. So I have to go back to c2, and now the bishop comes and checks me, and I go back to c1, where I should have gone in the first place, and now we'll just defend the pawn with the rook instead. And here the knight comes up, and I like this move, because now I can bring my king up, and the bishop can't check me here. Now I'm defending this with the king, and getting ready to push here. Knight comes up, but now there's no one defending this pawn. And even though the knight's attacking my rook, I have this check. And now king to g7, and we take the pawn now, giving me huge control in the center here. And after the knight takes on b2, it's basically game over. After e4, attacking the bishop here, which has to go back. And now I realize that this knight cannot really get out. It's kind of trapped. So I go to bishop to b3 to block the only escape square, currently defended by this bishop though. And after a couple more moves, we're just going to win the game. Because now the knight can come to c7 to attack this bishop, which needs to be defending this square so that the knight can escape. And after the bishop goes back, we just trade it off. And now the knight is trapped. Bring the king over to c2. Knight is trapped. Bishop tries to defend it. Use the rook to add another attacker. And they resigned right here. Okay, let's do the queen's gambit this time. We're going to start out with d4. Hopefully they play d5 and we can play the queen's gambit. All right, we're going to now go forward with c4. And they're going to decline the gambit. This is exactly what I want so far. Knight here, bishop here. And I'm going to go, I usually go bishop g5, but bishop f4 is what I'm trying now. It's a new thing. You can go either one here, but now I'm hitting this. I'm going to go here. And a lot of people think I can just check here and then take, but they can defend with the knight, blocking the check and defending the bishop, guys. So, it doesn't work as well. Oh my god, I need to go up here. And they're trying to defend it. I think I just do that. They're really trying to hold on to this. Should have done this first, maybe. But I don't think it's a problem yet. I should have played e4, and now I could have played e5 right now, and I think it would have won something. Maybe I can do it now, though. Probably doesn't work after. Well, if he castles, it doesn't work. He's just gonna go here. I don't like the way I played this, but dude, I need to redo this opening. I should be playing the perfect queen's gambit openings here. Why didn't I just do this immediately? What? Okay, gotta be this. Wait, yeah. No, what am I thinking? I was thinking this comes with check, but it does not come with check. In fact. I think this is good. And then when he takes here, bishop is defending the bishop covers this, right? So what's happening? I just don't know what to do now. What if I did this and then move my rook over? Because I'm kind of worried about this right now. But I don't know if I have a better threat. I can do this first. I don't know, guys. Why do there have to be so many chess possibilities? Couldn't there be a chess game where there's just like 4 pieces? And they have like a couple different moves? So complicated. Hurts my brain. Holy smokes. There's no way, dude. There's literally no way, dude. There's no way, dude. How should I take? Because if I take like this, I can then do this. But if I take like with this, it just looks like a solid pawn structure. What do they even have after that? Dude, if I take with the f pawn, I can open up the king, like the rook on the king. But if I do this, it's just solid. But like also kind of my... Oh, it does double up in front of my king. I'm kind of worried about like... how open my king is. So maybe I do want to double the pawns up here, but then there's a weakness right here. Oh yeah. What are they even trying to do? Ah, if I take, yes, I take with the bishop, or the, oh, you can take with the knight too. I guess, what am I thinking? Maybe I should do this, but then they're just gonna fork me. Okay, yeah. What if I did this? Oh, I like this. This is totally the move. This is what I was going for. I was talking about earlier about how I had want to have the rook on the f file, right? That's why I took here. So let's just do it. Yeah, see, this your thing doesn't work. Now this. And if pawn forward, then I take here, and that's like really the only move other than going back, and then I take here, right? Or take the rook and I'm up, right? As long as I'm not getting into trouble here. Should be a win on the last game here. King back here, and then I take here, and then we trade queens, and then I take your rook. And then I'm up, I guess. I don't know. Rook and a bishop versus a knight and a bishop. Is that correct? But we could be doing something else. I think there's more winning to be had. Now I at least win the queen, but no, I'm gonna like check him and then take here, right? Can the queen go at me at all? No, he has no checks. Chess is hard. Can someone make an easier version of chess? Checkers? I guess. Yeah, I'm all here for the Connect 4 meta anytime. This. Oh, this. I don't know, like worried about getting back rank, but also more worried about having my king exposed, so easier to worry about back ranks than to see all the checks. Okay, I think we have checkmate. After it takes, checkmate. Rook sacrifice for the checkmate, guys. The checkmate. I saw this right in the patterns manual. Wait, hold on. No, it works, because then king here and then I did boom, boom, boom. It's a couple more moves than I thought, but I thought this was checkmate, but the king can go here. And then it's checkmate after. Would have been awkward if that threw the game, though. Also, this is not checkmate, but now this. And now they can't go here, so they have to go here, and then I go boom, boom. Rook sacrifice mate in 3. Main 2, I guess. The game? Folks, you have to know this. Welcome back to the Bobby Bo Show. Here's the moves it starts with. They play e5, and we have a common variation of the Queen's Gambit. You're going to see this all the time, and I have 2 games for you here today of the same opening. And after c captures d5, they take back with a knight, and you play e4, taking a strong center, both pawns in the center, so they have to go somewhere. This game, they go to f6, and I play e5. Now the knight's under attack, so they go to d5, and I play bishop to c4, and now e6, supporting the knight, and getting ready to bring the bishop out to check the king, or pin the knight to the king. And here I play queen to b3. Now they play knight to c6, and that attacks my pawn that my queen's no longer defending, and I don't even realize it for some reason, and I play knight to c3, but I realize it once they play knight captures d4, attacking my queen, and now I have to go back to d1. And now I've completely lost the slight advantage that I have in the opening by giving up my center pawn, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to turn this game around. So if you think I can make the comeback, hit the like button. And now they play knight to b6, attacking my bishop, and I played bishop to b5 check. And what would you play here? Would you block with the bishop? Would you play c6? Would you take with the knight? If they block with the bishop, I take their knight. And the best move is just to take here, because after I take back, we can trade queens, and now I can't castle. They're up a pawn. They can play knight to d5, defending the pawn here, preventing the fork. And black is better off, and they're probably going to win the game. But instead, they played c6, and I went back with my bishop. And now bishop to e7, getting ready to castle. and bishop e3 attacks the knight. They take the bishop, I take back with the knight, and here they should trade queens again and just go into a slightly better endgame that they should be able to convert easily if they know what they're doing. But they castle, and I play queen to c2, preventing the queen trade. They play knight to c4. This attacks my pawn, and I'm not sure if I noticed this because I castled here. And instead of taking the pawn, they took the bishop, which is apparently just as good because after I take back, these two pawns are really weak, which also weakens my king. But one thing I have going for me is now I have an open file for my rook, which may or may not be important later. And now they play bishop to c5, attacking the pawn and x-raying my king. I defend it with queen to c4, and now queen to b6 adds another attacker and hits the b2 pawn. And I play rook to f3 to defend the pawn. This also lets me bring my rook over to attack the king, and allows me to double my rooks up. And now they make a huge blunder and play f5, attacking my queen. But what's the best move? And of course, it's the brilliant en passant. And after the rook takes back, the game is completely even, maybe even a slight advantage for me. Their rook and bishop haven't moved yet. I'm almost done developing, and their king is not as safe as they might think it is. So now I bring my rook over, and they play bishop to d7, getting ready to finish development, but it's almost too late. And now I want to take this rook, but when I move my rook away, they can take this pawn with check. So first I play knight to a4 to attack the queen and the bishop, and after the queen moves, now I trade bishop for knight, and then I take the rook. And now I've opened up their king, and I have some attacking chances. So I take the pawn with the rook, and what would you do here if you were them? I'm threatening to play queen to g4 check, so they should play e5, so the bishop defends the square. But instead, they play rook to f8, and now it's getting pretty close to winning. I play queen to g4 check, king has to go to h8, and queen to f4 is apparently the best move here. But I took the rook, and after they took back with the queen, I played queen to d4 check, they have to block with the queen, and now I played a great move, queen to d6. And this does three things. First, it's threatening the bishop, so the queen has to defend it, and if the queen ever moves, I have checkmate right here, and I'm also threatening to play queen to b8 check, and then take the pawn. They play a6, and now I play queen to b8 check, and after they block with the queen, I take the pawn. Now they play queen to c8, offering the queen trade, and I like the queen trade because after we trade queens, you'll notice that they have 4 pawns, and they're all disconnected. I'm up a pawn, and my pawns are connected. So this should be a winning endgame now, I just have to play it right. So here we go, bring the knight up to attack both the pawns. They defend it with the bishop, and all they have is a light square bishop, so I just had to put my pawns on dark squares so they can't attack my pawns. So here we go, put the pawns on dark squares, defend the knight, put it back on a good square, defended by the pawn here, and it's in the middle of the board. And now we bring the kings to the middle, put the pawn on a dark square, bring the king up to attack the pawn, and now we just bring the other pawns up on dark squares, trade the pawn off, and now I have an outside passed pawn that they have to be worried about. King f5, bishop to f3, and they wish I would take this because if I took it, they would have a pawn that I can't stop. So instead, a4, bishop to h5, a5, and now bishop to f7. They can't really make any progress, so they're just making some bishop moves. And now I go king to g5. Now I can defend the pawn if it pushes up, and bishop to e8. And when I push the pawn, they realize they can't stop me from promoting, so they have to take it. And now they're going to try to promote on the other side of the board, but they can't. We trade pawns. I go back to the middle to take the pawn. Now they have an outside passed pawn, but my knight's going to stop it. And I'm just going to bring my king up and bring the pawn with it. Now when my king is on the 7th rank, it defends all 3 of these squares, and the pawn can just walk right up. This comes with check, so they have to move their king. And now I'm about to promote. They play a2, but my knight can go to c2 and stop their promotion. And now there's nothing left to do, and they resign. And the second game has the same opening. Here's the moves it starts with, the martial defense. But this time I'm going to show you the right moves. After we trade pawns, play e4 to attack the knight, and we have both pawns in the center like before. Now they go to b6, and now knight to c3. e6, knight to f3, bishop to b4, pinning my knight to the king, and I'll attack it with the pawn. They'll trade pieces, and now I have 3 strong pawns in the center of the board, and this is a good opening for me so far. Engine says almost +2, even though it's even material, just because of my strong central control. They castle, and I go bishop to d3, lining the bishop up with the king here, and they develop their rook to e8, lining it up with the king, and I guess getting ready to strike the center, but I castle now, and they play knight to d7. And where's this knight gonna go? It's currently blocking the bishop and the queen, and after I play e5, it can't come to f6, and now my bishop has an open diagonal to the king now, so they have to worry about that, but instead they play c5, and there's a huge tactic here, a classic. Do you know this one? It's called the Greek gift, and it's bishop captures h7, and after the king takes, you play knight to g5 check, defended by the bishop so the queen can't take, and the king has to go back to g8. And now you play queen to h5, threatening checkmate. And here the best move is knight to f8. But you have queen captures f7 check, king has to go to h8, and now you're just going to bring your rook over and bring it up and over. and checkmate the king, and they can't stop it. They have to give up more material. So you're about to win the game. But somehow I missed this, even though I'm always looking for it. And instead I played queen to c2, because this is my usual development move, getting ready to take here. And they play queen to c7. And this is a mistake because now I just take the pawn. King goes to h8, and now I should just bring the knight up to defend the bishop and threaten to take here. But instead I just bring the bishop back. And I'm still winning, but not as good as I could be. And now we trade pawns. And after we trade queens, Engine says I'm +2, which can still be easily winning, but I could have been more easily winning if I would have taken advantage of the kingside attack. And now knight to d5, that's a good square for the knight. Very strong, controls a lot of squares here. So I play bishop to d2 to stop them from coming forward. And now b5, getting ready to develop the bishop. I bring my rook to b1 to attack the pawn and line it up with the bishop. So a6 to defend the pawn. Bishop e4 to pin the knight to the rook. And they support the knight with knight to b6. I bring my other rook to c1 so it's on the open file. I want to bring it up to c7 so I can attack this pawn and threaten to checkmate the king. Very powerful to have your rooks on the 7th rank. And they play bishop to b7. I play bishop to b4, putting the bishop on a strong diagonal, and they don't like that, so they take it with their knight. And I could take with the pawn here, but that would lose my bishop, so I have to take the bishop here, attacking the rook and still attacking the knight. And what would you do here? Would you move the knight or the rook? And they decided to move the knight, attacking my rook now, but they should have played rook to a7 because now I can play rook to c3, attacking their knight, and their rook is still under attack, so now they have to play rook to a7, but I have the brilliant bishop captures a6, taking a pawn, and after they take my bishop, I take their knight, and I've won another pawn, now up 2 pawns, and I'm back to crushing the game. Rook to a5 to defend the pawn that I'm attacking, and now I'll double up my rooks. Knight to d5 puts the knight back in the center and gets ready to bring the rook over to b8 to defend the pawn, but now I can take it, and after they take on a3, I can finally bring my rook up to b7, threatening to take. And now with their rooks doubled up, they're trying to threaten me with a back rank checkmate, but I play knight to g5, and this is the attack I should have been going for all along, but better late than never. And after g6, I can take the pawn here, and they'll go to g7 with the king, and I'll go back, checking the king. They'll attack my knight with king to h6, and I'll support it with h4, getting ready to checkmate, so they have to go king to h5, and now just rook to h7, and they resign, because when the king goes to g4, it's basically checkmate, not yet, but I'm controlling all of the squares around the king, and all my pieces are ready to checkmate, and there's no way to stop it, so they just resigned. And those are the games. If you like these commentary videos, let me know in the comment section by leaving a comment, and hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching the Bobby